still holding me. Oh, I just never thought that I would be replaced so soon. I wasn't prepared to hear those words from you. I know I wanted to be free. Yeah, baby, this is how we wanted it to be. But if you see me walking by and the tears are in my eyes, look away, baby, look away. And if we meet on the street someday and I don't know what to say, look away, baby, look away. Don't look at me. I don't want you to see me this way. If you see me walking by and the tears are in my eyes, look away, baby, look away. And if we meet on the street someday and I don't know what to say, look away, baby, look away. Don't look at me. I don't want you to see me. If you see me walking by and the tears are in my eyes, look away, baby, look away. Don't look at me. I don't want you to see me. You called me up this morning, told me about the new love you found. I said I'm happy for you. I'm really happy for you.
When I saw you standing there, about fell out my chair. And when you moved your mouth to speak, I felt the blood go to my feet. Now it took time for me to know what you tried so not to show. Something in my soul just cried. I see the want in your blue eyes. Baby, I'd love you to want me the way that I want you, the way that it should be. Baby, you love me to want you the way that I want to, if you'd only let it be. You told
Is this on? Yes.
yourself years ago.
Okay, that's nice.
Okay, hi everybody.
Let your feelings
Thanks for coming out. I usually have a really witty or funny joke about something my wife made me do, but I'm actually kind of fresh out of all those, so I'm just gonna need everybody to chill. There, that kind of works. I need to remember that one with my kids. Okay. Oh, I didn't plug this thing in, so of course it's not gonna work. 1 second. It is true when they say that most technology issues are just a person issue. So I needed to plug that in. So first of all, I want to take a moment to give a shout out to our friends at OmniSend. They're the ones that made this whole event possible by getting Jimmy out here, covering lunch. We've got Marty, and where'd Josh go? Over there, two ends of the room. Now, do you want me to run the raffle? Do you want to talk? I mean, you can come up and talk. You don't want to share about how cool OmniSend is? It's like the boring email platform that just makes you money because it just runs and doesn't screw anything up for you? You don't want to come up and say that?
I'll say whatever you say.
Okay. All right. So we have a raffle here. We have a prize. It's a $100 gift card, right? Can anybody guess how many customers right now are using OmniSend? Just shout it out.
147,000.
Okay. That's very, very specific number. Anybody else? 2,170,000. 70,000. We could, other people can guess. You don't get anything for being wrong, guys. Like, it's okay. Any other numbers? 225,000. 90,000. I feel like, Bryce, you should be disqualified because you work in the email space. Because Bryce is pretty close. 91,000. Somebody should say 147,001. That's what I was kind of going for. Does anybody want to guess that? Okay, Russell got 147,001. Do I hear any other numbers? Sorry, what's that? 125,000. Okay, boom. Yeah, so
You're smart.
I couldn't remember if it was 150 or 125, so I sent you guys in the wrong direction. So Jordan's our winner. Guys, Omnisend is one of those platforms that are established, ton of customers doing some amazing things. If you get a chance to hang out after this event, we're doing a workshop from 2 o'clock. Jimmy's going to be leading the discussion there. Omnisend's going to be involved in that as well. You'll get to learn a little bit more about the platform. But without any further ado, I want to, this was the slide I had for that. Great. Totally. Okay, we're going to keep going. Again, it was a person error, not a technology error. Okay, master the inbox. So retention is something I work a lot in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matt Holman. I'm the founder of Commerce Catalyst. I do a ton of work in subscription prescription. I'm really happy that you guys are all here. We'll talk a little about the community at the end very briefly, but I want to introduce these three amazing people. We've got Jimmy Kim. We've been friends for years now. He's one of my favorite people in the space because he's one of those guys that just gives, and gives. From content, education, training, events with Commerce Roundtable. He's just amazing. If you're not following him online already, highly recommend LinkedIn and Twitter. Al Salomon is an OG in the retention space. I feel really lucky and proud to be able to work with her, with some of our clients as well, but is doing some amazing work. And then finally, we have Rachel Hansen, who's running retention at Just Ingredients, which if you've been living under a rock and don't know anything about supplements or Utah Ecom, then you probably haven't heard of what Carlin Call and everyone is building out there. But it's an amazing company, and I'm really, really excited for all these three. So without any further ado, we're going to do a slightly different format. We're just going to let them ask each other questions and answer, and I'll give you like a 5-minute from the back, and then we'll do a little Q&A for people. Yeah, and without any further ado, what's working in email right now, guys?
All right, you want to kick it off?
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I can kick it off. I wanted to ask you guys this too. Just a recent success that you've seen for a brand or client, and we're all kind of in different spaces, brand side versus tech versus agency, so all of the experiences will run together. But something that's worked for us recently is messages from our founder, and I've seen that work for a couple other similar brands. Our founder is really involved in our marketing, and she's the face of the company, and we do a lot on social. So seeing that translate to email has been really cool. We recently kind of redid how we do a newsletter from her, and that had huge success. We put in some affiliate links. We put in a recipe that linked to our social media. We put in, what else? Podcast links. We also have a podcast. So we kind of tied everything together and, changed the sender name to be from her, and saw huge results, which was something that was really fun and exciting.
Do you guys generally tie your social media into your founder and have other places that she's apparent and obvious in the public too?
She's very apparent in the public, yes. Not so much in the email, though. I usually keep email more marketing branded, not Carlin focused. So that was new for us.
Yeah, well, part of it is, kind of the effect, right? Like a lot of your followers who follow you are usually on social, who are also on your email list, who are also buyers. So you see that effect happen better when you see your founder actually out there. So she should continue to push social because it's just going to make your email stronger.
Yeah, it totally did. I wasn't expecting it because in my mind, they're a little more separate, but you're right. They're not. We'll keep doing that.
No, it's good. And then the other part to that, I think, and you're kind of nailing what I'm seeing, is that there's a lot more focus on copy this year. I think that's something that people are realizing, just how much important it is. And just like that example, when you think about what you're doing direct response ultimately. You're talking to them. You're using words to sell, not images and design, which I think that more people are starting to realize is important. And it has been important for decades, right, online. But the reality is that we've been able to get away with more designs and pretty pictures for years. And I think that now that the space in every brand, doesn't matter what, I mean, there's still obviously brands that are winning, but it's become definitely tougher just because of the noise that's in the market today. So what about you, Al? What are you seeing?
You know, I actually have a question because I work with a brand right now and they are very private in terms of like founders are in the background. We can't like, you know, social media is not like a thing for them. So for brands that aren't like founder facing, what are we seeing brands do in that situation? Maybe more.
So
questions.
I do have an answer to that. I've seen other people within the brand come up and step up to the plate. The marketing manager, Original Grain, who's Nate Lagos, Original Grain, he actually stands in front and does personal emails from him as kind of not the founder, but the marketing guy, the guy behind the emails. And it's instead of bringing up the founder, you're bringing the person who's actually working behind the scenes there, and you're bringing your personality out. I mean, ultimately, the big thing that I'm seeing is that people are easy. We've all known this. People relate to people, right? And they think that, oh, okay, now I have a human, not just a brand in front of you. So if the founders don't want to come up to the plate, it's actually just as great to bring the marketing person. It's just to humanize it. Put somebody in front of it and just explain who you are, and they don't care as long as you're representing the brand.
Yeah, I might just put my name out there now.
Yeah, do
There
it.
you go.
From Al. We've also seen some plain text emails do really well, and I was really scared of those for a long time because they're ugly. Like, I'm like, nobody wants to, what is this? Why do we do this? But we have the easy out that they can be from Carlin, our founder, and she's the face. So that has been another way to humanize the brand and come right from me, but from her, which has been cool to see.
Very cool. I know we have some questions. Al, I think on that question, what else are you seeing working right now in email? What have you done recently?
Yeah, so this is like something newer that we've been testing in the email space, specifically around retention. I think if you think of like the top reasons customers cancel, it's usually like they're not using the product or they have an overstock, which means they're not using the product. So using conditional splits and flows where a single click can identify whether they're using the product or not. Like you can simply ask like, hey, are you using this product? Yes or no. If they say yes, great, send them a review request, ask them for UGC. If they say no, then those are the customers that you want to have a completely different post-purchase experience for, because it kind of acts as a churn indicator. They're telling you like, no, I'm not using this product, or maybe they're not even opening that email, which is also, in my opinion, a churn indicator because they're not engaging with your brand. It's really simple. You could also do it via SMS through keywords, but it's, I haven't seen a ton of brands do it. And the brands that we have implemented it for are seeing results. So,
I think that's interesting just because a lot of brands are scared to email their customers and ask them how they're doing, asking for the feedback. And I think it's really important. I mean, people want to give feedback, especially when they like your brand or they want to like your brand. They tend to want to give that feedback. So it's almost like it's almost first party data. It is first party data. They're giving you the answer right back to you. Right. So very interesting.
What would you say to brands who are scared of emailing their customers?
Well, I think that especially in the subscription space, I think that there's way too many brands. I meet brands all the time. They're like, let me exclude my subscription people from my emails. And I think that's absolutely the wrong thing because they're actually your most loyal customers and most likely the ones that are going to buy more and continue to expand. And a lot of people get scared because they're afraid of the cancellation and churn. And the reality is, well, A, it's going to happen. And B, if you have a high number of churn and cancellation, well, you've probably got a product problem at that problem. And they're probably not feeling the value. So it's actually taking it one step deeper and thinking about how is my product doing? Is the value being given? Am I really giving them what they want? And is there a pricing problem? Is there a perception problem? There's some kind of problem that's obviously there. You shouldn't be scared. They're the ones that will spend more money. I see it constantly with brands, and I know you guys see it, right? When you start emailing your subscription people, the people on the subscribers with products, they will upsell and upgrade and upbuy because they want to continue to spend with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even recently with some of the brands we work with over at Subscription Prescription, we use an email tool, shout out to Bryce over here, called Zamo. And it's just been like crazy to see the opportunity that exists within email interactions and, allowing subscription holders to add things to their next order or, giving them more control over their purchase overall. So I 100% agree with that.
I think if they were going to leave, it's not because you sent an extra email. That's they're not the
That's
ones
right.
to be scared of for that. Yeah.
All right, let's jump into this other question. I think that we flip around and say, all right, we've seen the success. What are the challenges you guys are seeing right now in email? Like, what are some of the nuances that are happening right now? Obviously, some of the bigger ones, in my opinion, start with two things that I think about. I was kind of kick this off, but I see one. Obviously, there's more emails than ever right now. Everybody's leaning into retention or into the email side of things that because, well, they're not as successful in acquisition, so they're finally turning to it, which I think is probably the wrong way of thinking about it. You should have probably been doing it a long way. And then deliverability becomes a continuous challenge that people are seeing and feeling. And one of the things that I work with a lot of brands right now are deliverability issues that continue to come up and arise, and a lot of people don't know that they have a problem. What about you guys? What are you guys seeing? What are you seeing at the brand level?
On the brand level, I think competing with the noise. Yesterday was April Fool's Day. We didn't do anything, which I'm glad we didn't, but my email and text inboxes were filled of jokes and not jokes and sales and discount codes. And I was like, really? Like, I don't know. Some of them weren't as tasteful as I think they could have been, but I think breaking through the noise is something really hard for us. And I know that's a huge buzzword, especially around Black Friday time, but anytime there's an excuse to have a promo, that's, I think, hard for us.
Yeah, I would say like historically on the brand side, and maybe some of you guys can relate, what we've done is we pull up like every possible national holiday
yep.
and you plan your campaign calendar around that, and it's, not supposed to be a thing anymore. But I think for me in the email space, the tricky part on the brand side or even on the consultancy side is like email has progressed so much in the last few years that it's almost hard to pinpoint like what technology we should adopt versus what technology we should hold off on, because it almost seems like a lot of it is competing even amongst like current platforms that we're utilizing. And so just identifying like what's worth it and what's not with email when it's been so static for so long.
How have you helped decide what's worth it and what's not? Because I'm sure your email inbox is like mine, everybody trying to sell me on something, right? And I'm not the decision maker, so
Yeah,
I can't do much about it.
Depends on how much the gift card is for.
Yep. Glad I'm not the only one.
No, but I think sometimes like that's why we have to lean in so much with our community and people in this space. I think that we don't gatekeep anything. We are the first to share what's working, the first to give shout outs to platforms and technology on LinkedIn. And sometimes like you do have to test and just see. And also I think just like having the end in mind, like if you're going to adopt a new software for email, like what are the expectations? Like, is it going to be replacing or adding? Cost, obviously. So it's just kind of like right now a lot of like trial and error.
Yeah, and I think one thing I will always stand on the hill and say that it honestly, at the end of the day, the tool is just a vehicle, and it's only going to allow you to apply the strategy that you're trying to develop. And a lot of times, the problem that's happening right now is that a lot of brands lack the strategy. They're not thinking about how am I actually applying this strategy to my business. They're just simply trying to mimic or do or use the tools to actually apply that and create their own strategy. And the reality is it's not just retention a lot of times. You have to almost take it back one more step and go, what is my overall marketing strategy? What am I trying to accomplish? How am I tying my overall business goals to my market and to my business? How's my inventory? How's my, when you think about the modern retention marketer today, right? I think about this like too long if people said, oh, email and SMS is retention. It's not. It's actually looking deeper into the business needs, the goals, inventories, your customer support. All of that is your retention piece, because your whole entire goal, and there's only one goal, is not to acquire a new customer in this role. It's to take the current customer you have and make them purchase again. That is like your literal goal when you're thinking about what you are doing as a retention marketer.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I came from Crumble, and at Crumble, my goal was to sell cookies, and the franchise partners were in charge of making sure they had the flour and the sugar and the chocolate chips. And then coming here to Just Ingredients, I'll put together an email, and my manager's like, yeah, this is great. Let me check how much is in stock. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. So tying in, what's in stock, the customer experience doesn't end when they hit purchase. It has to be available. And that's something that's been new for me on the brand side, is to think about inventory stock outs and making sure those tie together, and that really has to bring in the strategy of the whole company, not just marketing. We can sell as much as we want, but if there's no product to sell, it's
100%.
nothing. Yeah.
What about you, Al? What are you seeing?
No, I'm thinking of what you just said, Jimmy. Like, people think that retention is email and SMS. So how do we start to change that narrative, do you think?
I think it starts with it starts with a little bit of opening your mind up, right? You've got to start thinking about, how do I understand the business goals and work backwards from there to tie your bottom goal? Because you have a purpose often in the retention or the email and SMS strategy, CRM strategy, whatever you are, you have a goal that you have to meet. But a lot of those goals don't work if you're just focused in kind of a tunnel vision kind of thing. You've got to ask questions. You've got to want to understand where your overall impact is in the market. You've got to work with each department, right? Not just your paid media department, but your retention department, your product department. Really understand what is at stake and where things are working. And then you really need to dive into the data. I think people, again, are siloed into only their data for their own things that they're working on. Oh, what are my click rates? What are my revenue rates, you know? But you've got to start thinking bigger around, what am I trying to accomplish? What's selling? What's not selling? You know, yesterday I had a consulting call with a brand yesterday that I was talking to, and they had all these different brands, and the brand was a joint pain company, and their entire advertising was coming in through a joint pain, and they were selling this joint pain supplement, right? But they also sold other things like night sleep, colostrum, all this other stuff, and they were coming to me, they're like, why can't I upsell this stuff? And I said, well, your customer is coming in for joint pain. Why would they want to buy these other products? And a lot of brands sometimes at the product level think, hey, if I have one customer, I can just easily expand. And unfortunately, a lot of that doesn't translate very well. And they're seeing that exact thing happen. And so when you think about that, it comes down to, hey, what is my business doing? What's my paid media doing? How am I echoing that paid media's effort? How am I understanding the customer that they're bringing in? Because if you don't understand your customer and understand who and what they want and why they made the purchase initially, you're never going to be able to translate what you're supposed to do to speak to the customer to be able to get them to make a purchase. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Strategically, Jimmy, how do you help them get there? Selfishly, we are a brand like that. We have a hero product and 200 other SKUs, and we're kind of just entering this phase of like, all right, we have all these people who love our protein powder. How do we get them to know we sell supplements and deodorant?
So this is, and this was exactly the consult call I had yesterday, and the answer is something that hurts the founders, but the actual answer is, you got to stop selling them, and you got to get rid of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and some of the things I recommended were, if you're doing a post-purchase upsell, put those other products at heavy discounts, clear them out, let's get cash flow back in. Let's think about the hero product, what's working for your business, and then expand against that product. Bundle things that work with that product. There's a pain, right?
Cool.
Maybe it's creams instead of just drops. Maybe it's pills now that are vitamins that are gonna help you, right?
Yeah.
If you can't find an angle to connect with the main product, then there's nothing to sell. And I understand like the idea like, oh, I sell one thing and of course they're gonna want this other thing. But they don't look at you like that.
No.
They're here because they want a single product. And the death of, and when I ran a brand, it's the same thing that we ran into. The death of a brand often is because you try to expand into verticals you're not bringing the right customers in for. Just because you have customers, just because you have a list of people, doesn't mean that they want that product from you. They came in because they were advertised, they were sold to, and they were branded to a single product, which is why, single product brands still continue to exist and thrive in this market, is because when they have a single product that works, that's what resonates, and being really strategic. So my answer to them was, get rid of the inventory as fast as possible, re-strategize on your product, and focus on products that are going to be complementary, that you can tie a story and narrative into it. If you can't tie a story and narrative, you got to blow that inventory out and just get the cash flow back in. And that's probably the most hurtful thing to the founder's ears he heard, but he was appreciative because he understood that that's the right thinking. And he knew in the back of his head, and
Sure.
everybody knows in the back of it, why isn't this product selling? But the reality is, there was a reason why, because you have the wrong customer. And that's what it always comes down to. It's the wrong customer.
Yeah, it's tricky.
I think I would also add, because I currently work with a brand and they only have 2 SKUs, so
Okay.
we don't really come across that problem. But I also worked in skincare, and we had tons of SKUs. And an approach that skincare company took was to bundle products based on solutions. So
Oh, yeah,
people come in, they buy protein powder for different reasons. For some people, it might be weight loss. For some people, it might be endurance, working out, or for others, just like health conscious decisions. So even like bundling up what makes sense could potentially work for a brand that has multiple SKUs, I would say.
We've started drilling into that, and it's helped on the education side, to teach why you need this, not what you need. Yeah, I love those ideas.
Do you ever survey your customers and ask them why they like your product or why they like your brand?
We've talked about it. We haven't got there yet.
You should absolutely
It's on
do
the
that.
list.
You'd be fine.
Okay.
It's
taking
going
notes
to
over
help
here?
you pinpoint exactly what and why they're here, and it's
Yeah.
going to show you probably an overwhelming statistic,
Yep.
and you're going to realize if my copy does not talk about this thing, it's going to be extremely hard. And look, there's always outliers, right? Like
Sure.
some of these products are going to sell just because they're on your site, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But in a day where inventory and cash flow are so important right now, and finances are tight, like you've got to be smart about how you're ordering that inventory, and that all ties into what's actually selling, especially to a second and third time for your customer.
Yeah, I mean, 80% of our revenue comes from 20% of our products. That
Of
is
course.
100% true over here.
And that's
so.
typical for everybody,
Right,
right?
right.
But everybody always wants to expand out
Yeah.
as far as possible. And I get it. Like the mentality is, oh, if I expand all these products, surely they'll buy more product and surely I'll be more customer lifetime value off of them. But the reality is, it doesn't translate. It just gives you a lot of stock and inventory at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to mention the good news is there's a National Ask Your Customer Day almost every quarter.
Great, we'll send an
So,
email.
Perfect
Awesome.
timing.
That's awesome. Okay.
Lean into the holidays.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Jimmy, you posted on LinkedIn, maybe yesterday, about creating friction in the inbox.
Yes.
I want to ask you about that. For brands who maybe play it safe most of the time,
Yep.
how can you find the happy medium between creating friction and also being true to your brand? Because I tried that once, and then I got called into the CEO's office, and she wasn't happy with the subject line. So
It does require
how
a
does that
little
work?
buy-in from other people that
Yeah.
you're pushing the edge and you're making people uncomfortable ultimately, right? And uncomfortable, you don't always, just because you're a great happy brand doesn't mean that you can't make people uncomfortable or you can't challenge people. And it does require buy-in, so if they aren't bought into the idea of it, it's probably going to be extremely hard. And I know most founders or operating CEOs really care about their brand, obviously, right, from the images to everything else. But one of the things I talk about this pretty often because everybody talks about how great they are, how good they are, how this is the best and how they're the best, and you know what I mean? And sometimes people need to hear the other side of it because most people are pessimistic or they're challenging that theory, right?
Yep.
And if you can lean into that and talk and start addressing to the point of why and what they're thinking in their head, instead of trying to sell them and convince them, you're going to their side and agreeing with them ultimately. If you think about it, right? You're changing the narrative from, hey, my product's great, but here's why my product's not great for you. Here's why you shouldn't buy. And that takeaway and that uncomfortableness of people is important. You want people to jump through a little bit of hoops. I know like everybody wants to have the most frictionless sale and the most important, but those aren't always the best things either. You want people to fight for it, right? And you want those consumers, and if you have a good product brand and you've got good marketing, they're going to go through all the hoops that you go. There's a reason why, if you're on a platform that's not as good as maybe Shopify, for example, in the market, and some things are really hard to buy, you know what I mean? And they make them really challenging, and I'm not here to beat on anybody, but I buy from a brand that I love, but they're on BigCommerce, and because they don't have Shop Pay, it pains me every day. But I'll still buy it because I need the product. And it doesn't matter. And that's a point of friction that occurs, but that's okay for me because the product is so good and I enjoy it. So it's the same idea when it comes to marketing. You take that idea and you're like, well, what do people challenge? What do people get angry about? What do people email us and don't like? Let's talk about that. Let's stand in front of them and be okay with that and tell them why we're okay with that. And it gets them to go, okay, they realize they're human. They realize that, we're human on the other side and we're not talking about things always on the positive side, and that's all it is. And it's really important because, well, look at your inbox right now. Everyone's talking about how great they are and how awesome they are and how they're the best. Well, everyone's the best. Who's going to call their baby ugly?
Yeah.
No one does. That's the truth.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think it comes back to humanizing the brand too.
Yes.
I mean, we're a health and wellness brand. There's a lot of skeptics out there,
Of
who
course.
are like, why do you do this and this and why don't you do that? So yeah, that's interesting. I'd love to lean into that more.
Are you guys seeing, I want to know any overrated or underrated things in email that you guys are seeing?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, there's a lot of overrated things going on, but it's always been kind of there. I mean, look, one of the things that are the most underrated thing I think that's happening right now in the market is I think it's actually flows. I think the use of flows and the change of them. Actually, Omnisend, who's in here, had a really great report. They dropped it this beginning of this year, and what was shocking about that report was that 1 in 3 people who clicked in an automation flow were converting. That's based on like 122 billion emails or something wild like that. And when you think about it like that and realize, oh my God, I have been leaving money on the table. And I know many of you guys, I'm not going to ask anybody to raise their hand, but when I say, when's the last time you've gone and analyzed your flows and changed them up? The answer often is 3, 6, sometimes 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, because they think in their head that it's set and forget. And the most underrated thing that people can do right now is actually go back and every 30 days, this is what I recommend to everybody I talk to, you should be going in every 30 days, analyzing it, tweaking it, optimizing it, and trying to continue to get better at it. Because, well, your customers are changing. Whatever your paid media is doing on the top, they may have shifted from, more Meta to TikTok, or they might have gone from TikTok to, something like AppLovin and switched their entire customer base or the way that they're coming in or their advertising angle, and those things have to work in congruence together. So that's probably my biggest underrated thing that's happening right now. I think that more and more people are realizing it, but they're not spending enough time in it because that's where a lot of your revenue is. Campaigns are pretty. I know. Every marketer loves campaigns. Campaigns are the thing. They're pretty. You're throwing them out there. They make you a big gob of money. But automations are the unsung hero, in my opinion, and they've always been. They've just not been utilized enough in this market.
Totally, I agree. And something that's worked for us from the brand side with 200 plus SKUs is making those automations personalized to purchases. Not a crazy new idea, but it was new when I got here. We put those in place and it's been huge for us. So, people who bought protein after their purchase, we send them recipes for how to use their protein powder. And that's been really successful and keeps those people coming back and gives them a reason to hit the site again, which has been great.
Yeah.
Al, you asked the question, but you didn't answer.
Well, I needed the answer. I think, though, the reason email marketers are scared to touch flows is because when you have a brand like that has 200 SKUs, our flows could look really, really messy.
Oh, it's scary, yeah.
Yeah, like even post-purchase flows, like making it dynamic per customer without the email being cut off, like there's so much to consider. But with that, Jimmy, like in your opinion, what should the breakdown be, or is there a breakdown between campaign and flow revenue that most brands should shoot for?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that all depends on what you're selling. Obviously, something consumable is going to have a higher flow rate versus a campaign, right? Depends on how your purchasing behavior. If you got a big, expensive hero product, your campaigns might actually have stronger data that comes out of it. But generally, I'm somewhere between that 50-50, 40-60 mark, splitting either way. Somewhere between that swing mark is where I want to see it. If it's skewed one way too much, it probably means that there's not enough attention happening in another side of it, and so forth. So that's usually what I go. And then to kind of what you just said, a lot of brands do have a lot of SKUs, and they do get their flows extremely messy. And what I always advise when I talk to people is you don't need to go off and create a post-purchase for every product. You need to categorize them and try to bring them together. And you should probably only have a handful of categories, so it shouldn't be too crazy. And I know that there's always these outliers, but you already nailed it. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your products. That's where you focus your energy on. You don't need to focus on if they didn't buy this and this and this and this and this and this to go here, because that's such a small outlier of customer, and that's generally not actually where you want to be spending your time.
Yeah. Along with that question about where revenue comes from, what tools are you guys using to measure revenue? Are you all in on in-platform analytics, or is there other tools out there that you like to help supplement?
What are you using?
So we use Northbeam
Okay.
for third-party attribution tool. I think in recent years, we have strayed away from in-platform attribution.
Okay, interesting.
Pressure from other teams with overlap and things like that. And I've always mentioned like in-platform attribution or in-platform metrics should always be indicators. And you can have North Star metrics that you're trying to shoot for, but for the most part, like Northbeam or a Triple Whale is what I'm seeing a lot of brands use.
Cool.
And you're in subscription, so you have the loud noise of other things that are happening off platform that are
Exactly.
triggering, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that when I think about your question, it's not about the tools, it's about what you're actually measuring now. I think the change of measurement is coming into place, right? And what I'm talking about is like, instead of thinking about open rates and even click rates are kind of shaky because a lot of people are using click rates off of a percentage off of your total email or send. You start looking at revenue per recipient, earnings per recipient per month. You're looking at auxiliary metrics around like bounce rates and unsubscribe rates. Like those metrics are still very, very important, and I know that people don't pay attention to them enough, but I think that is really important. So for me, I do still look at those rates in the platform. I don't really care. The revenue thing is the revenue thing, right? Like it's kind of hard because it's like if I'm running a sale or I'm running different things, it's not a really good metric. But what I am looking at is like if I sent an email out, whatever platform I'm using for all my stuff, it could be Northbeam, Triple Whale, whatever it is, I want to look at what my email guidance is kind of showing you, right? But however, there's this really big caveat that's happening right now, which makes it really hard, which is tracking is really off right now, even at SMS side and email side, a click tracking, even a click tracking, which is going to be cookie or UTM based often, is still not perfect anymore because, well, Apple, for example, is stripping out UTMs and click tracking right now, even in SMS. So a lot of brands are seeing more direct traffic than ever when they look at their analytics. But that direct traffic's not direct traffic. It's actually from your email and SMS often. It's just unmarketed correctly because, well, your device is filtering these things out. So the only true metrics that you can look at is just look at trend lines around your data, not looking at the metrics as a binary number, but an actual trend line. And then combining that with how can I look at I have an email list, what is my revenue per recipient, how much am I earning per email versus the emails that I'm sending out, and kind of making math happen for yourself. That's really the best place to think about right now.
Cool. Great. Yeah, I agree. We use Triple Whale.
Yeah.
But I need to get braver and dig my. It's
You just
so
gotta. I
overwhelming.
think the best is just getting into Excel
Yeah.
and trend lining it. I hate saying that, but I don't believe the platforms. They're good for high level, but
Right.
it's hard to see it the way that you need to be seeing it, especially when you're trying to figure out the performance of it. And you also are tying in like your store data, and you should be looking at what is my repeat revenue on my store before I pull out and look in my email and look at how much percentage I have. Then I might be stripping away my welcome flow and say my welcome flow is me supporting attribution, acquisition. I'm supporting on the welcome flow because a pop-up is not retention. That is just acquisition support. And I'm going to go split my data off and look at how my flow data is doing versus my campaign data, right? And you start splitting that up, and it starts giving you a clarity of picture. Where is my repeat revenue coming from? Am I really driving more repeat revenue, or am I doing the same enough, or is there ways to continue to increase that?
Interesting.
I want to take a step back to revisiting flows every 30 days. Like, what exactly are we looking at?
Well, I think you're measuring the same thing I'm talking about right there. I'm talking about what's your revenue per recipient, what's my average revenue? Let's say 30 days, I get 1,000 people to come through that flow. What am I earning on revenue per recipient there, right? Comparing that to my other flows, I've got 4 or 5 post-product purchases. I want to see how they're doing and figure out how to get them on the right trend, right? You want to see them up. Your job as a marketer is to continue to improve these numbers constantly. So if you're thinking about it that way, you're looking and drilling down to figure that out. You're looking at unsubscribes, for example. How's the trend there, right? Month over month, am I seeing an increase or decrease? You're trying to resonate with that user. The number one reason people unsubscribe is because your message doesn't resonate, for example, right? You're looking at click rates, right? At the raw numbers of percentage based around how much you're sending. So you're looking at all those data points combined with how many are actually making it out. Am I making the flow filter too tight? Am I excluding too many people, right? Because sometimes it's not a retention problem, it's an acquisition problem that occurs, right? And that's what it's going to help you identify. That way you can kind of say, hey, there might be a problem somewhere else because I'm not getting as many flows right now, or my revenue per recipient is dropping right now. Why is it dropping? Why aren't they buying? And then you start diving in one layer deeper, and you're looking at, hey, what's going on? The clicks are still there. These are still happening. Unsubscribes are good. The revenue's going down. Right? So you've got to find what the problem is, and then you start working towards increasing it. And oftentimes it's usually something to do with copy acquisition or something to do with your CTAs or somewhere around those places. And you should be testing these things.
Yeah, test and learn. That's always the
It's
key,
a
right?
constant test and learn, and some
Always.
things you'll trip up and you'll lose on, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Right? That's your job. You're supposed to test and push. If you don't push, then you'll never know.
Yeah, that's great. Are we at our 5
Oh,
minutes?
that's what the beeping was. All right.
Yeah, I wondered what that was.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, okay, cool. What about, what else do we have? Any other questions you guys are thinking about? I think we went through the ones that we had written down.
Yeah,
We could do questions from the audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, let's do it.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Okay, two really basic questions. One, I feel like I'm always questioning how frequently to hit up my customers, right? Like how frequently, weekly to do, and you guys are talking about all these things, but it's like how much is too much from a successful company like Just Ingredients? I'd love to know how often you guys are sending out your emails, flows, and I guess the flows come with purchases, but I guess campaigns basically, how often? And then two, when you're talking about a friction moment, Just Ingredients does a lot of comparing to other brands, like showing this is why this brand sucks and we're awesome. How does that, do you guys integrate that into your email, and is that ever a legal concern?
Great questions. As far as email frequency, when I came on board a year-ish ago, they were only sending when there was a sale. So we've really tried to pivot that into adding in educational content. It sounds like you're familiar with our brand. We do a lot of educational content, like you said, comparing, contrasting, talking about why ours is different and how it's better. So we've tried to lean into a lot more of that educational evergreen content. And it's not always as successful, obviously, as the sale emails, but we've tried to find a happy medium there. So I'm probably sending a campaign twice a week, and I don't know the answer either. This is something we're testing too. Like Jimmy said, it's always testing and trying. So probably 2 campaigns-ish a week, and then on sale weeks or when something exciting is happening, it's way more than that. Along with SMS too, because I always keep in my mind a lot of these customers who I talk to on a daily basis, they're engaged in both email and SMS. So it's balancing a similar message on both channels, but not always the same. It drives me crazy when I get an email and a text from a brand that are the exact same. And then your next question around the legalities. Like I mentioned earlier, we kind of try to keep it soft on the compare and contrast, especially on the email side. Social, I think they lean into a bit more of that, where they talk about brands that way. But on the email side, I try to keep it a little more vanilla, I guess you could say, just because there are legal concerns, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. And that's the stance that our VPs have taken too. Great questions.
So I'll kind of share my take on frequency. And my frequency take is a little bit different than yours a little bit, and I think this is important to understand. So there's 2 types of customers, or 3 really, but when I think about my segments that you should be running as a brand, there's 3. There's your prospects, there are your customers, and then there's like your loyal customers, right? Here's the thing about your prospects. Your prospects are prospects for a reason because they came to your site, they opted in, and now they're in the buying cycle, right? And most buying cycles happen within 7 to 14 days. Depends on the price point, of course. If you have a more expensive price point, it may take 30 to 60 days. So I actually believe that on your prospect list, you need to be in front of them every single day. And if you go subscribe to any of the biggest brands in the world on D2C, if you just are a prospect and you're not a customer, they will push on you every single day for a reason, sometimes twice a day. And there's a reason for that because they have 2 objectives: get you to buy or get off their list. That's what you want. Versus a buyer, when you're a customer, you have now earned your loyalty. You have shown that you've spent money. You are willing to get tied in with the company. That is when I start slowing down frequency, and I'll go down to 3-4 times a week. But here's the reality of things, and this is always the big thing. Average person in on your customer list is getting 250 emails a day. Do you really think they notice if you did or did not send an email that day? The answer is no, they don't. They're filtering through 250. Half of them, they're just clicking off and archiving and swiping. They're not reading it because the email wasn't good enough to get their attention. And they do not remember. They don't remember anymore. That fallacy, unfortunately, is something that was dead 10 years ago. I think 10 years forward now, people are flooded so much with email that they just don't even notice it's happening unless it's in front of them. And you'll get a rare customer who goes, you're emailing me too much, but they might not be subscribed to much, or they probably unsubscribe to everything. But the reality is most customers are sitting there with 250 emails from everybody, the lecture company, their mortgage company, their aunt, their uncle, 17 brands that they're subscribed to, Amazon. They're getting so many emails every day. The only thing they can think about is, do I like what their subject line, or is it a brand that I love? And if they love your brand, they're going to open it. If they find a subject line intriguing, they're going to open it. Otherwise, they're going to swipe out. So for me, it's very simple. Prospects, I'm in front of them every day until they either buy or get off my list, because why am I spending the money on them? If they've been on my list for 60 days and they haven't never purchased, they're probably never going to purchase ever from you. And that's the truth of it. They might just be sitting there opening it. The second thing is on your buyers, you got to stay in front of them because you need to get that repeat purchase to happen. So those are the ways that I think about it. I know it sounds aggressive, but if you think about it and you think about your inbox and you start focusing on it, and you go look at the biggest brands, the ones that are doing $100 million plus in the market, or $500 million, you'll notice something. Go opt into them. They're going to blast you every single day. They're going to stay in front of you until you either buy or get off their list, because that is their objective. It costs them money to do stuff. So that's where I kind of lean on the frequency side of things.
And from a content perspective, that sounds overwhelming, but reuse your content. If
Yeah.
people don't open your email, send the exact same one with a new subject line. They'll never know. That's been a strategy that's been huge for us. It's sneaky, but it helps my poor designers so they're not making me a new email every single day.
You're just moving blocks around. You're just playing around with them,
Yeah.
changing subject lines. They won't know.
I mean, that's how we put so much content on LinkedIn, right? Like
That's it.
Like if
Yeah.
you remember, if somebody could remember every single post I've ever made, you'd see I repeat myself a
Yeah.
ton, right?
Yeah, people are goldfish. You have to remember that.
Okay, we got
It's
time
true.
for one more question.
Is that the same strategy for SMS?
Completely opposite for SMS. I don't think SMS is utilized correctly these days by many brands. SMS is not a blast channel. It's a now in moment channel. If you look at the way that SMS is used, you've got a 2-hour window where most activity happens, right? The best SMS for campaigns are open, click, like not open, opening a sale, closing a sale, urgency messages. But where most dollars are made with SMS is actually in your flows, because they're intent based. I abandoned a cart, I browse abandoned, I made a purchase and I want my notifications. So I actually think that brands over SMS, because they seen in the early days, especially through COVID, it kind of gave us all inflated data that people are paying attention. Well, we're back in an open world now. People aren't thinking about the same way. SMS is now just an urgency tool, and if you do it too much, they won't pay attention. And if you go look at, especially the people who use more SMS, you look at a younger generation, Gen Z and younger, you'll see they've got hundreds of SMS that are unopened and unread for a reason, because it wasn't important enough for them to open it. And that's the way I think about it. So I actually think the opposite with SMS. I don't know how you guys think.
I agree, yeah.
So I'm going to tell my wife she's Gen Z because she's got 1,000 unread text messages?
Yes.
Cool. All right, let's give them a round of applause. That was great. I love that discussion format. Can I get a quick we didn't need a moderator or okay. Awesome. I mean, I usually moderate, so that's great. Okay, for those of you that are not aware, we're hosting a workshop about email that's going to be led by Jimmy and Marty about email. It's going to be much more hands-on discussion amongst all the attendees. That's at 2 o'clock in this place. And if you're interested, we also are hosting a dinner later. Just come hit me up if you'd like to come to that, and I can give you the details for that. Just running through a couple quick things. So for those of you that aren't aware, Commerce Catalyst, we do these lunch and learns. We have a really active Slack community, and we also have an annual conference that's going to be on September 5th. We've just opened ticket sales, so I'm doing every ticket, brand, SaaS, service, are $25 this week. I'm not publicizing it other than our Slack and our email list, and then here. So if you want to grab a ticket for 25 bucks, you can scan that QR code and it'll open. I can always bring it back up, or you can bug me later. But I'll hold it for just a little bit longer because I see phones up. And yeah, it's the Utah Ecom event of the year. I'm sorry if you're from Pattern. Accelerate's cool, but Commerce Catalyst rocks. Okay. And then we're doing a couple fun little quick upcoming events. If you like basketball, if you want to go play basketball on the home court of the Jazz at the Delta Center, Corso is putting on an event with us and a few other partners. You can scan this to go. You guys were at that last year, right? Yeah, that was really fun. It was really fun. Okay, and then final thing, if you'd like to join our Slack or our newsletter, it's right here. And thanks again for coming, everybody. We'll be hanging out for a little bit, and then the workshop starts at 2. So thank you.